One wrong move, and he would get completely destroyed by everyone. A single exhausted man stood alone against 600 Philistine soldiers with nothing but a wooden ox goad. The men looked at him and thought he was crazy. Few laughed at him, and many mocked him. But as he was swinging his ox goad, the men looked closely at his face and realized he was a complete monster with legendary strength. How did a simple man working alone in the fields become the most terrifying warrior an army had ever seen? To understand this, we must go back to the beginning of Shamgar's story. Long ago, the land of Israel groaned beneath the brutal oppression of the Philistines. Their empire spread across the region like an iron shadow, swallowing villages, controlling trade routes, and terrorizing entire communities wherever their armies marched. The Philistines were feared everywhere because they possessed something the Israelites did not: superior weapons, trained soldiers, and complete military control. Their warriors marched in heavy bronze armor that glimmered beneath the blazing sun. Long iron spears rested in their hands, curved swords hung from their sides. Entire villages would go silent the moment the sound of Philistine armor echoed through nearby hills. But the Philistines did not simply conquer Israel with armies alone. According to 1 Samuel 13, they created a cruel system designed to keep the Israelites weak forever. The Philistine rulers removed all the blacksmiths from the land, so no Israelite could forge weapons of war. No swords could be made, no spears, no shields. Even basic farming tools had to be sharpened inside Philistine territory for expensive prices. Israel became completely defenseless. The fear spread across the nation slowly at first, then consumed everything. Roads once crowded with merchants and travelers became abandoned. Trade stopped between villages because anyone traveling openly risked being attacked by Philistine raiders. Families began hiding in caves and forests just to survive another night without being discovered. At sunset, doors slammed shut across villages throughout the land. Mothers held crying children close whenever soldiers passed nearby. The Philistines seemed unstoppable. Children grew up hearing terrifying stories about them, whispered around fires late at night. Entire generations of Israelites learned how to hide instead of fight. And in the middle of this broken nation lived a man named Shamgar. Very little was known about him. He was not a king living inside fortified walls. He was not a military commander surrounded by soldiers. He had no famous reputation, no wealth, and no powerful family name. Shamgar was simply a farmer. Every morning before sunrise, he walked into the fields beneath the cold dawn air and worked until darkness covered the hills again at evening. His hands were rough and scarred from years of hard labor. Dirt permanently stained his skin. His shoulders ached constantly from guiding heavy plows through rocky ground beneath endless heat. While others hid from Philistine patrols inside caves and mountains, Shamgar remained out in the open because his family still needed food to survive. His life followed the same exhausting pattern every single day. Wake before sunrise, work until exhaustion, sleep, then wake up and repeat everything again. He owned no armor, no sword hung at his side, no shield rested inside his home. The only thing in his hands was an ox goad. The weapon that would one day terrify an army began as nothing more than a farming tool. The ox goad was nearly 8 feet long, carved from heavy wood, thick enough to survive years of brutal labor. One end held a sharp metal point used to guide stubborn oxen while plowing fields. The other carried a flat iron scraper designed to clear mud from plow blades. It was heavy, awkward, and poorly balanced. It was made for dirt and animals, not war. Still, every single day Shamgar watched the Philistines march across Israel like they owned the land. From the ridges near his farm, He could see enemy patrols moving through valleys below. Their armor reflected brightly beneath the afternoon sunlight, while swords and spears clattered against shields as they walked confidently through Israelite territory. He watched them enter villages without fear. He saw them steal food from starving families. Sometimes, smoke rose into the sky where homes had been burned. Other times, distant screaming echoed through the hills while terrified villagers fled into hiding. For years, Samgar stayed silent like everyone else. Survival was all that mattered anymore. Keep your head down, avoid the soldiers, live another day. But something inside him slowly began changing. Every burned home, every frightened child, every hungry family. The anger buried itself deeper inside him year after year. The entire nation lived beneath fear, but inside Samgar, fear slowly hardened into rage. Then one scorching afternoon, everything changed forever. What do you think is more powerful, training and weapons, or pure rage? Please comment down below. The heat that day was unbearable. Dust clung to Samgar's skin while sweat rolled down his face. Then suddenly the earth beneath his feet trembled. At first it was faint. Then came the sound. Heavy marching boots, clanking armor, voices, laughter. Samgar stopped working immediately. Slowly, he lifted his head toward the hills. Across the fields, a massive group of Philistine soldiers marched directly toward his farm. Hundreds of them. Sunlight flashed across bronze helmets and iron weapons. 600 armed Philistines. This was not a simple patrol. These were trained warriors carrying iron swords, heavy shields, long spears, and armor built for war. They marched with complete confidence because nobody resisted them anymore. To the Philistines, Samgar looked pathetic. A sweaty farmer standing alone in the dirt with a wooden farming pole in his hands. The soldiers laughed as they approached. Some pointed toward the ox goad mockingly. Others shouted insults across the field. A few drew their swords, slowly smiling as though the fight was already finished before it began. They expected him to run. Everyone always ran. But Samgar did not move. Years of fear, humiliation, and buried anger rose inside him all at once, like fire erupting from the ground itself. He stared across the fields at the soldiers marching onto his land. He looked at the armor that had terrorized Israel for years. He looked at the weapons that had driven families into caves and mountains like frightened animals. Then, he tightened his grip around the rough wood of the ox goad until his knuckles turned white. The hot wind blew dust across the field while the Philistines continued spreading around him confidently. Still, Samgar refused to step backward. Something inside him had finally broken. He planted his feet firmly into the dirt of his farm and decided that if he died that day, he would die standing. The first Philistine soldiers approached slowly, grinning as though they were about to crush a helpless animal. Then Samgar moved. With explosive force, he swung the heavy ox goad through the air using both hands. The flat iron scraper smashed directly into the helmet of the first soldier with a brutal crack that echoed across the field. The man collapsed instantly into the dirt. Before the others could react, Samgar spun the long pole around and drove the sharp metal point into another attacker. The second soldier fell backward, gasping. The Philistines froze. The laughter disappeared immediately. A lone farmer had just killed 2 armed soldiers within seconds. Angry shouts exploded across the field. Embarrassed and furious, the Philistines charged toward him together, believing their overwhelming numbers would crush him instantly. But Samgar fought with terrifying strength. The long reach of the ox goad gave him an advantage the soldiers had not expected. Their shorter swords forced them dangerously close before they could strike him, but the heavy farming pole could hit them long before they entered range. Samgar also knew every inch of the terrain around his farm. Instead of remaining in the open fields, he backed toward narrow, rocky spaces and uneven ground, where only a few soldiers could approach him at once. The battle exploded into chaos. Wood slammed against bronze shields with deafening force. Spears scraped across stone. Dust rose violently into the sky beneath pounding boots, while soldiers shouted over one another in confusion. Samgar swung the ox goad again and again with brutal power. The heavy iron scraper crushed helmets and shattered bones. The sharp metal point pierced armor whenever soldiers lunged too close. Every movement came from years of hard labor beneath the blazing sun. The Philistines kept attacking, and Samgar kept fighting. A soldier lunged forward with a spear aimed directly toward Samgar's chest. Samgar knocked the weapon aside with the thick wooden shaft and smashed the attacker across the jaw so hard the man spun violently into the dirt. Another soldier rushed from the side, swinging a sword downward. The ox goad whipped through the air and struck him across the face before the blade could fall. More soldiers charged forward immediately afterward. Samgar stepped deeper into the rocky terrain, forcing them into smaller attacks instead of allowing them to surround him all at once. Minutes turned into hours. The battlefield became a storm of dust, violence, and screaming men. Philistine soldiers stumbled over fallen bodies while others pushed forward behind them. Shields collided, spears snapped. Still, Samgar fought. His muscles burned from exhaustion. Sweat soaked his clothes completely. His hands split open from gripping the splintering wood so tightly. Yet he refused to stop moving. The Philistines slowly realized something horrifying. They were losing. Dozens of soldiers already covered the ground. Every time they tried rushing him together, the narrow terrain trapped them into smaller groups, where the ox goad became deadly. What should have been an easy slaughter slowly transformed into panic. Others watched in horror as another Philistine crashed into the dirt beneath the swinging ox goad. This was no longer a simple farmer defending his field. This man was destroying them. According to Judges 3:31, Samgar struck down 600 Philistines with the ox goad and delivered Israel from oppression. Still, the battle continued. The afternoon sun drifted lower across the sky, while long shadows stretched over the torn fields. Dust covered Samgar from head to toe. Blood stained the heavy wood in his hands. His breathing became slower and heavier with every passing moment. Yet he kept advancing, swing after swing, step after step, hour after hour. A Philistine soldier charged with a raised shield, trying to overpower him directly. Samgar slammed the ox goad into the shield so hard the man lost balance instantly, then drove the sharp metal point through the opening beneath the armor. Another attacker rushed immediately behind him. The iron scraper smashed into the side of the man's helmet with a sickening crash. The battlefield echoed with screams and clashing metal. The Philistines, who once marched proudly through Israel, now stumbled backward in fear before a single exhausted farmer. Their confidence vanished completely. Some soldiers shouted desperately for others to advance, while others tried pulling away from the front lines. Panic spread rapidly. Still, Samgar refused to slow down. His arms felt heavy as stone. His lungs burned for air. Sweat mixed with blood and dirt across his face. But every time another soldier approached, the ox goad rose. The sounds of battle echoed through the hills for miles. Wood crashing against armor, men shouting in panic, spears scraping stone, boots pounding dirt. The battle stretched on beneath the blazing sky until the afternoon slowly faded toward evening. The surviving Philistines finally looked around and understood what was happening. Bodies covered the ground around them. Their soldiers were falling faster than they could replace them. The mighty conquerors who had terrorized Israel for years suddenly looked terrified themselves. And still Shamgar advanced. The evening wind slowly swept across the battlefield. The remaining Philistines finally broke. Some turned and ran across the fields. Others stumbled backward in panic, desperate to escape the exhausted farmer still gripping the blood-stained ox goad. And then, slowly, the battlefield fell silent. The wind carried the dust away. What remained behind looked impossible. Bodies of Philistine soldiers covered the torn fields. Broken shields and dropped weapons lay scattered across the dirt. 600 Philistines had fallen. 600 trained warriors destroyed by one man. And standing in the middle of the battlefield was Shamgar, exhausted, bleeding, covered in sweat, dust, and blood, still gripping the splintered ox goad in trembling hands. The sun slowly disappeared behind the hills, while silence settled over the ruined fields. One farmer had destroyed an entire military force. The news spread across Israel faster than wildfire. Whispers traveled through caves, forests, villages, and mountain paths. A farmer defeated 600 Philistines. The enemy had looked unstoppable. Their armor, weapons, and armies made them appear invincible. But after that day, something changed across the land. People slowly stepped out from hiding. Families walked abandoned roads again. Villages began rebuilding burned homes. And throughout the hills and valleys of Israel, the story spread from mouth to mouth. The story of Shamgar.
Hey guys, hope you liked the video. Please like and subscribe and comment which country you guys come from. It'll truly help us. If you like this video, then I'm sure you'll love this video also. Till the next video, see you later.